So page 26. We had gone beyond the break, and Sri Aurobindo is describing to us the gradual growth of Aswapati's inner being. Yeah? He said, as so he grew into his larger self, humanity framed his movements less and less. A greater being saw a greater world. We stopped on line 165, so I'm going to read on from there. Sri Aurobindo said, the gifts of the Spirit crowding came to him. They were his life's pattern and his privilege. This special gift that is given to him, the gifts of the Spirit. So that's what's going to be explained now. A pure perception lent its lucent joy. Its intimate vision waited not to think. It enveloped all nature at a single glance. It looked into the very self of things. Deceived no more by form, he saw the soul. In beings, it knew what lurked to them unknown. It seized the idea in mind, the wish in the heart. It plucked out from grey folds of secrecy the motives which from their own sight men hide. He felt the beating life in other men invade him with their happiness and their grief, their love, their anger, their unspoken hopes entered in currents or in pouring waves into the immobile ocean of his calm. He heard the inspired sound of his own thoughts re-echoed in the vault of other minds. The world's thought streams traveled into his ken. His inner self grew near to others' selves and bore a kinship's weight, a common tie, yet stood untouched, king of itself, alone. A magical accord quickened and attuned to ethereal symphonies the old earthy strings. It raised the servitors of mind and life to be happy partners in the soul's response. Tissue and nerve were turned to sensitive chords, records of luster and ecstasy. It made the body's means the spirit's acolytes. A heavenlier function with a finer mold, lit with its grace man's outward earthliness. The soul's experience of its deeper sheaths no more slept drugged by matter's dominance. in the dead wall, closing us from wider self, into a secrecy of apparent sleep, the mystic tract beyond our waking thoughts, a door parted, built in by matter's force, releasing things unseized by earthly sense. A world unseen, unknown by outward mind, appeared in the silent spaces of the soul. He sat in secret chambers, looking out into the luminous countries of the unborn, where all things dreamed by the mind are seen and true, and all that the life longs for is drawn close. Who should start today? You, Sarojini?
A pure reception when its lucent joy, its intimate vision waited not to think. It involved all nature in a single glance. It looked into the very self of things, received no more by from he saw the soul.
Yes, this is one of the gifts of the Spirit, that we are no longer dependent on the physical senses and the appearances of things. Instead, the Spirit brings a pure perception. It's not mixed with anything. It's not mixed with material appearances, with the movement of the senses and the nerves. It has an intimate vision. It doesn't have to think. There's no activity of the brain. That pure perception envelops all nature at a single glance, and it can look into the very self of things, the very essence and truth of things. So, Asvapati is no longer misled as we are misled, deceived by form. He can see the soul directly. Alice.
In beings, it knew what lurked to them unknown. It seized the idea in mind, the wish in the heart. It plucked out from gray folds of secrecy the motives which from their own sight men hide.
Yes. So this pure perception can see right into the heart of things and beings, no? So in beings, that pure perception is aware of things that the beings themselves are not aware of, hiding from them, lurking, hiding, concealed. His pure perception is able to directly grasp what is the idea in the mind of that being, what is the wish in the heart, and even it can, as if, draw aside these grey curtains of secrecy to reveal the motives, the reasons people have for thinking and wishing and doing things that they hide from themselves. They would not admit to themselves that those are their motives, that's what they want. No? but he can see exactly what it is that's moving them, the motives which from their own sight men hide. We can deceive ourselves and think that we're doing things for very high reasons, and it may be something completely different. Naren.
He felt the beating life in another man, envied him with their happiness and with their grief, their love, their anger, their unspoken hopes, entered in currents or in pouring waves into the immobile ocean of his calm.
Yes. So it's not only thought, it's also the life force in other people, the beating life in other men. He feels that life force pouring into him, carrying their happiness or their unhappiness, their grief, their love, their anger. He's mentioned in a letter something like that he felt the anger of somebody downstairs rushing up the stairs and coming and attacking him. He felt their love, their unspoken hopes, their secret hopes. These things enter just as currents, as flows of energy, or perhaps in the case of anger, some very strong emotion in pouring waves. They come rushing in and they're absorbed in that unmoving ocean of his calm. That is the basis of all these, that he can receive these gifts of the Spirit, this absolute, undisturbed calm. Kamala.
He heard this inspired song of his own thoughts, re-echoing in the world of other minds. The world's thought streams traveled into his brain. His inner thought braved nearer to other souls, and bore a kinship way of common God. It stood untouched, came of itself alone.
Yes. So Sri Aurobindo has spoken about this also, hearing his own thoughts re-echoing back to him. It's as if you're in a cave and you shout out a name or something and you hear it echoing back, it comes back. So it's like that. In the vault, a vault is a curved ceiling or roof of a cave. He heard the inspired sound of his own thoughts, the thoughts that have come to him through inspiration. They've gone out from him and he hears the echoes coming back from other minds. And he becomes aware of the streams of thought that are passing around the world, that are there in the mental atmosphere of the world. He becomes aware of those thought streams. They travel into his ken. Your ken is what you know, what you are aware of. There are some things that are beyond our ken, that we are not aware of them, we don't know about them. These thought streams for us, mostly they are like that. They are beyond our ken, but they entered in to Aswapati's knowledge. And he feels his inner self very close to the inner selves of other people. So he feels that connection, a kind of responsibility, of relationship, a common tie, like we feel to people who are very close to us. But because of that immobile ocean of calm, he can still stand untouched. He feels what they are feeling. He feels sympathy, connection with them, but he's not disturbed. His inner self, it remains king of itself, master of itself, untouched, alone. Suresh.
The magical accord quicken and attend to ethereal symphonic to hold earthy strings. It raised the surrender of mind and life to be happy partners in the soul's response. Tissue and nerve were turned to sensitive chords. Records of blisters and ecstasy it made. The body's wings, the spirits,
Acolytes.
acolytes.
Acolytes. It means servants, assistants. So an accord, it is in music when two instruments or two voices are in harmony. So there's some power of harmony. A magical accord is waking up, quickening, and tuning the old earthy strings, all the parts of the material being, that are part of this instrument that we have. It quickens them, it means wakes them up, makes them more sensitive, more alive, and attunes them, gets them more perfectly into tune with those divine ethereal symphonies that are being played in the heavens. So these earthy strings, the parts of the body, the instruments of the body. And that magical accord, that inner harmony, lifts up the servitors of mind and life. We have parts of our being which serve the mind or serve the life, or both, the senses, the perceptions. It lifts them up. So they are not just serving the usual physical purposes. They become happy partners in the soul's response, when the soul responds in a subtle way to the things around. And tissue and nerve. Here we have the tissues of our flesh, and running through them are the nerves that carry messages from whatever we contact to the brain, where it gets translated into our sense perceptions. So these tissue and nerve become much more sensitive. They become like sensitive chords. A chord is when we play more than one note at a time. If you played the piano, you can play several notes at the time. Even on a violin, you can do that. So that becomes richer and more intense, the music that you're experiencing. So those chords become records. They go on vibrating. They become records of luster, of light, and of ecstasy, of delight. That magical accord made the means of the body, these different possibilities that our bodies have. The body uses to explore the world around it. These are all turned into acolytes, of the spirit. An acolyte is somebody who helps the priest when he's performing a sacred ritual or ceremony. There'll be young boys who are training to be priests. They are the acolytes. They help him. They pass him the things he needs or whatever it is, whatever assistance is needed. So the things that the body uses in its experience, these become servants and assistants of the spirit. Lela.
The heavenly function with the finer mold, lit with its grace, man's outward earthliness, the soul's experience of the deeper sheaths. No more slept, drugged by matter's dominance.
So this is in comparison with our normal physical experience. He experiences a heavenlier function. It's working in a more divine way, with a finer mold, in a much subtler, more responsive way. This lit with its grace, the outward earthliness, the materiality of our human experience. And as a result, the soul's experience of its deeper sheaths, not just the outer physical covering, but the inner levels. In our normal awareness, it's as if the soul's experience of the deeper sheaths is asleep. We are not awake to what we're feeling within. It's almost as if somebody has given us a drug and sent us to sleep. No? So what is it? It's matter's dominance. It's this heaviness and density and unconsciousness of matter which prevents us from experiencing those finer senses and sensations and perceptions and emotions and feelings. That's one of the things that some yoga disciplines, they focus on waking us up to these subtle sensations. There are disciplines for that, practices for that. But Asvapati didn't have to practice those things. They came to him spontaneously as gifts of the spirit as a result of his inner growth, the growth of his spiritual being. Sergei.
Into that mold, closing us from wider side, into a secrecy of apparent sleep, the mystic talk beyond our waking house. A door part built in by matter's force, releasing things unseen by both the sense, the world unseen, unknown by outward mind, appearing in the silent spaces of the soul.
Yes. So it's as if for us there's a wall, a dead wall, a wall that doesn't have any characteristics of life. It's not responsive, it doesn't move. A dead wall seems to close us off from our wider self, our inner self, which is much subtler and vaster. A door opened in that wall for Asvapati. It opens into a secret place, a secrecy of apparent sleep. It's as if everything there is sleeping. That is the mystic tract beyond our waking thoughts. Here we have our waking thoughts, but we are not aware of those subtler experiences which are going on behind that wall, behind that door. But when the door opens, then it sets free, it lets come to him, into his outward mind, things that can't be seized by our earthly sense, that we can't touch, taste, smell, hear, see. With our physical senses, he's able to experience much subtler things. He becomes aware of a world that to us is unseen, that's unknown to our outward mind. But for him, he becomes aware of that. It appeared in the silent spaces of the soul. He's not aware of it with the outer senses and perceptions, but deep within. Chandra.
He sat in secret chambers looking out into the luminous countries of the underworld, where all things dreamed by the mind are sane and true, and all that the life longs for is drawn close.
All that the life longs for is drawn close. Yeah. So in his inner being, in his secret soul, it's as if he's sitting in a secret room or a series of secret rooms, and he's looking out through that door or through windows into those luminous countries of the unborn, the beings who are not born in material forms here, who live in the subtle realms. Those luminous countries where all things dreamed by the mind are seen and true, they are real. And all the things that our life longs for, all the sensations and enjoyments and that our life dreams of and wishes to experience, all those things come very, very close. Then
he saw the perfect in the starry forms, wearing the glory of the deathless form, laying in the arms of the eternal speech, wrapped in the heartbeats of God expressly.
yes, so he can see the perfect beings on the higher levels in their starry homes, their homes full of light, but far away. And those beings, they wear the glory of a deathless form, an immortal body, a form that isn't born and doesn't have to die. And those beings are as if forever at rest in the arms of the Eternal's peace. Nothing disturbed them. They are rapt. They are in a state of rapture, of trance, wrapped in this throb of God ecstasy, in a state of bliss, of union with the divine. Mion.
He lived in the mystic space where thought is born and will is nursed by an ethereal power and fed on the white milk of the eternal strength till it grows into the likeness of a God.
We have different centers, no? And each of those centers or chakras that connect our physical body with the subtler worlds. You know? So now Asvapati is living in that mystic space, the subtle realm, for example, where thought is born, where thought comes into the mind center. And there's a space where will, here is the will chakra, that opens onto one of those mystic spaces. And there, the will gets nursed, it gets fed and nourished by an ethereal power, a subtle power, and is fed on the white milk of the eternal strengths. It's being nourished by that pure milk of the eternal, giving great strength so that the will becomes more and more powerful. It grows into the likeness of a God with a divine power. Martin.
In the witnesses, occult rooms with mind-built walls, on hidden interiors, lurking passages, open the windows of the inner side, the hours of undivided time.
So within us there is the witness consciousness, which stands back and observes the movements of our outer being, observes the movements of the world around us. It's as if he has a hidden room there from where he's observing, watching everything. Sri Aurobindo says that those rooms have walls. The walls are built of mind. But now in those mind-built walls, windows open. They open up onto hidden corridors. There are passages there where things can move around from one part of the being to another. He was not aware of them before. But those windows open and he can see those hidden interiors, those lurking hidden passages. These are the windows of the inner sight that can see what is going on in the inner being and in the subtle worlds. And this gives to Asvapati the ownership of the house of undivided time, of time past, present and future without any separation between them. You remember this line. 2 more stages come about his relationship to time. But here already he's being able to see the whole flow of time, not cut up into hours and minutes and past and present and future. I'll read one more.
He spoke about his experience in record of yoga.
Yes, I don't know.
In record of yoga,
Yes.
he spoke about his experience.
Yes,
That is about his Trikala Drishti.
yes,
Just seeing the past, present and future simultaneously.
yes,
He
yes.
said that experience was there from this time to this time in the record of yoga. he mentioned.
Yes. So all these, we can be sure that these are Sri Aurobindo's own experiences that he's describing. What's interesting, we'll see as we go along, that this Trikala Drishti, it develops. This is the first stage, owning the house of undivided time. And we'll see what comes next in this particular line of realization. Lifting the heavy curtain of the flesh, he stood upon a threshold serpent-watched, and peered into gleaming, endless corridors, silent and listening in the silent heart for the coming of the new and the unknown. It's as if just our physical substance, our flesh, is like a heavy curtain which is separating us from these subtler inner perceptions and experiences. And it's as if in that house of undivided time, he's able to lift up this heavy curtain. And then there he is, standing on a threshold. There's an opening, a door. A threshold is that door sill which you have to step over to pass from the outside to the inside, or from the inside to the outside. And in many cultures, definitely here in India, a threshold is a sacred place. No? There are spirits, guardian spirits watching there, and one shouldn't actually step on the threshold, one should step over it. No?
Especially for temples.
For a temple, yes. In a temple, the step is raised up and you have to bow your head and step over it. Yeah. So there are people beings guarding the threshold. In our South Indian temples, here in the Shiva temples, we see the guardian spirits on either side, the Dvarapalas with their weapons, and they will threaten any hostile or unfit being, preventing them from entering. But often these subtle thresholds are watched by energies, life energies, subtle energies, which are represented as serpents, as snakes. And that is the case in several places here in the poem. So there's a serpent or serpents guarding that threshold. He doesn't cross it at once. He peers, he looks through the doorway, peering into these gleaming, endless corridors, long, long corridors full of light, leading away from that doorway, from that passage. He's silent, he's listening in his silent heart. He's listening. What is approaching? What's coming along those corridors? Watching for the coming of the new and the unknown, new experiences. He goes on gazing across these empty stillnesses, these gleaming, empty corridors, and he hears the footsteps of the undreamed idea with a capital I. This is some new divine conception that none of us here have dreamed about at all even. But that new thing, that new manifestation, realization is approaching. He can hear the footsteps. Walking, moving in the far avenues of the beyond. These corridors are very vast, open. An avenue is a wide path. He heard the secret voice, the word that knows, that is so full of knowledge. And he saw the secret face that is our own, the divine face that we recognize. That's my true self.
case, when she found its own soul, this is at first she stepped into a night of God.
Yes.
This is the same, the corridors, the happiness.
No, I think these are different experiences. It's very interesting that in this book, Sri Aurobindo gives us first the account of Asvapati's yoga, which seems to correspond more to Sri Aurobindo's own experience. And if we think about the three realizations, which he says are part of his integral yoga, what Asvapati experiences is the spiritual realization. It's a widening that comes through knowledge, a different and subtle experience. In Savitri's case, she's told that in order to help humanity, she has to find the soul in matter. So she has to go into the layers of consciousness that are here in our physical substance. And it's only when she comes very, very near to the soul, then she has this experience of the night of God, which many mystics have spoken about. It's a night in the sense of there being a kind of sacred darkness without awareness, without knowledge, that makes her feel very humble and small, without knowledge, without achievement. Many mystics have spoken about this, that when you come close to the experience of the divine, it's as if, one mystic has called it, a cloud of unknowing. So whatever faculty of knowledge you might have had before, it's not working. You've moved into a different kind of consciousness. That's all I can say about it. A pure perception lent its lucent joy. Its intimate vision waited not to think. It enveloped all nature in a single glance. It looked into the very self of things. Deceived no more by form, he saw the soul. In beings, it knew what lurked to them unknown. It seized the idea in mind, the wish in the heart. It plucked out from grey folds of secrecy the motives which from their own sight men hide. He felt the beating life in other men invade him with their happiness and their grief, their love, their anger, their unspoken hopes entered in currents or in pouring waves into the immobile ocean of his calm. He heard the inspired sound of his own thoughts re-echoed in the vault of other minds. The world's thought streams travelled into his ken. His inner self grew near to others' selves and bore a kinship's weight, a common tie, yet stood untouched, king of itself, alone. A magical accord quickened and attuned to ethereal symphonies the old earthy strings. It raised the servitors of mind and life to be happy partners in the soul's response. Tissue and nerve were turned to sensitive chords, records of luster and ecstasy. It made the body's means, the spirit's acolytes. A heavenlier function with a finer mode lit with its grace man's outward earthliness. The soul's experience of its deeper sheaths, no more slept drugged by matter's dominance. In the dead wall closing us from wider self, into a secrecy of apparent sleep, the mystic tract beyond our waking thoughts, a door parted, built in by matter's force, releasing things unseized by earthly sense, a world unseen, unknown by outward mind, appeared in the silent spaces of the soul. He sat in secret chambers, looking out into the luminous countries of the unborn, where all things dreamed by the mind are seen and true, and all that the life longs for is drawn close. He saw the perfect in their starry homes, wearing the glory of a deathless form, lain in the arms of the Eternal's peace, wrapped in the heartbeats of God ecstasy. He lived in the mystic space where thought is born and will is nursed by an ethereal power and fed on the white milk of the eternal strengths till it grows into the likeness of a God. In the witnesses' occult rooms with mind-built walls, on hidden interiors, lurking passages, opened the windows of the inner sight. He owned the house of undivided time. Lifting the heavy curtain of the flesh, he stood upon a threshold serpent watched, and peered into gleaming endless corridors, silent and listening in the silent heart for the coming of the new and the unknown. He gazed across the empty stillnesses and heard the footsteps of the undreamed idea in the far avenues of the beyond. He heard the secret voice, the word that knows, and saw the secret face that is our own,